Buddy, how's it going? So I was told I was going to have 5 minutes, but now I only have 1 minute apparently. So I'm going to talk really fast. So my name's Neil Jacobs. I'm head of brand engagement for Swan Bitcoin, best place to buy your Bitcoin. Also co-founder of FOMO21, best place to buy Bitcoin merch. I see some of you wearing that stuff. Yes, thank you. Okay, very quick story that could probably be told in 20 minutes. Now I only have like 40 seconds to tell it. First time I ever heard of Dom Bei, the next person coming up, was a few years ago at Pacific Bitcoin. Awesome conference thrown by Swan. A few swans a few days before the conference going to a beach into the Pacific Ocean, jumped in. One guy, he comes out. He's like, I don't feel so good. A little woozy, dizzy, not sure what happened. They called the paramedics to come over. This guy comes over, Dom Bei, uh, gets up there. He's like, "Are you okay? Maybe we should put you on, one of those stabilizers, stabilize your neck." He looked fine. He thought he was fine. He could walk away. This guy, Zach, no, we're going to take him to the hospital just in case. So takes him to the hospital. In the ambulance, he's like, "So Zach, what are you doing here?" He's like, "Oh, I'm here for a conference." He's like, "Are you here for the Pacific Bitcoin conference?" And Zach's like, "Yeah, how do you know that?" He's like, "I'm actually working that conference in 2 days." So 2 days later, Dom Bei shows up at the conference and Zach's not there. And he asks somebody at Swan, "Where's Zach?" They're like, "You send him to the hospital. He broke his neck in two places. And if he didn't send him to the hospital, one wrong move, he would have been paralyzed from the neck down." So Dom Bei saved Swan Bitcoin's life. The first interaction he really had public facing in the Bitcoin community. So that's the story I wanted to tell. It really needs to be told in like 20 minutes, and I just told it in 1 minute. But he's a hero for that, for sure. So please welcome Dom Bei.
You killed it, bro. Wow. That is like an hour story. One part he didn't tell was that when I found out he worked for Swan and was a price analyst, I was like, stop the ambulance. Because I was a Bitcoiner before that. I was like, what's going on with this price action right now? And he looks up and I'm like, wait, don't move your neck, dude. Like, don't move. Okay, forget it. We'll talk about it later. Thank you guys for having me. This is my first time in Texas. When I was a little kid, I said, hey, I'm not going to Texas until I can go to Bitblockboom. So thank you, Gary, for having me. I want to thank Lynn for advocating to get me here and having me come here. I want to thank Tip NZ for making Gary a rap fan. I hear he's dropping a mixtape next conference. So I'm looking forward to that. And I'll just say, my brother's watching at home and knows we have the best mom in the world. But if I did have to pick another mom, it for sure would be Lisa Huff. And so another round of applause for her opening. So my name is Dom Bei. I am a firefighter, been a firefighter for 15 years. 10 years I spent on the union board as an elected officer, 6 of those 10 years as the president. I'm presenting today proof of workforce. What is proof of workforce? I was thinking about that the other night. I was like, it's just a name that sounded cool with proof of work in the workforce, but actually it's everyday workers winning from Bitcoin is what it is. And today I'm going to tell you the story of the Santa Monica firefighters, how we became the first union to hold Bitcoin in self-custody in the country, why we did it, why we think it's important, and why we feel our work is important. So to start off, I'm going to ask a question to the crowd. Who here trades time for money? Who here earns a wage, gets a paycheck? And if you own your own business and pay yourself, put your hand up too. Keep them up, keep them up. Okay, overwhelming majority of the room. So the good news, we're here. Thank you for giving me your time, which I know is extremely valuable. Y'all could be anywhere in the world, but we're here together, and this is great news. The bad news, which you guys know, is we got a raw deal. And for many of us, maybe get paid in Bitcoin, so great. You guys are on your way, and that's awesome. But most of the world trades their time, which is incredibly scarce for something that has been losing value since its inception. You all know this slide. I don't have to explain it. It's titled "Why Savers Are Losers." A little bit harsh in my opinion, but the point is the dollar incentivizes wage earners to have a high time preference and to be part of this consumer economy and not to save and to spend because it's a losing venture. Inflation, as you know from the last chart, everyone has known about inflation, but it's kind of in the background. But it's become kind of in the foreground because of the rapid inflation that occurred from 2020 to 2023. And real basic, I talk to workers all the time and I let them know if you had $10,000 in 2020 and you put it under your mattress, you lost $2,000. There's no debate. And that's conservative. And workers, a lot of times we get caught up that, I work hard for what I get. I'm going to hold on to what I have. It can't be taken from me. I have 10,000 under my mattress and that's mine. It's always going to be 10,000, but it's a loss. Furthermore, if you're a wage earner like myself and you did not get at least a 19% pay raise, you took a pay cut in the difference. And so that's a fact. And this is conservative. And it's not a coincidence that 2023 was a year that close to 500,000 workers in the US went on strike, and also a year where the amount of strikes were unprecedented, something we haven't seen in decades. That's not a coincidence because the top issue was trying to keep up with inflation. And for those that are employers, that's always been kind of something that's just a given. Inflation goes up 2%, you're going to give a 2% cost of living because you don't want your workers to take a cut. So there's other things on here. I don't know about you all, but I've also noticed, there's this, every so often some item gets, out of control expensive and everyone freaks out about it, whether it's eggs or milk or rent. And then everyone kind of gets worked up on it. And then it kind of comes back a little bit, but it doesn't return to where it was. And we're seeing this a lot, whether it's gas or food, these items, high levels of inflation. The second way the wage earner trades their time for money is in retirement. And I don't know if you all saw Bernie Sanders, who's on the Senate Committee for Education, Health, Labor, and Pensions, basically said the other day we're in a retirement crisis in the United States with close to 50% of Americans unprepared for retirement, with close to zero saved in retirement. This slide, I want you to focus on the blue area. This is for state and local pensions. And I have it labeled there, the great setback. So right around 2007, 2008, as the financial crisis was ramping up, prior to that, most pensions were funded in the low 90% percentile range. And what that means, if you're wondering and don't know what the funded status means, it means that the pension, if a pension's funded at 90%, it means that their portfolio and holdings, they have 90% of the money needed to pay all of their liabilities that they currently have. Not all at once, because we know retirements come in waves, but they have 90% of that value needed. What you see in this slide is a major drop, and that blue area represents unfunded liabilities. So they dropped from low to mid 90s to sub 80%, meaning that the pensions, and it's 77%, I think on average, or 76, have around 76 to 77% of the money needed to pay their liabilities, those who are receiving retirement. And we could go into, I promised myself I could stay on this slide for the rest of our talk, but I promised myself I wouldn't. We could talk about why this is, but the main thing is this has turned pension structures into having a larger appetite for risk. And in doing so, they have to move into private equity hedge funds, which Wall Street loves, and they pay exorbitant large fees, and Wall Street makes more money. And so, this is not a good place for pensions to be in, and many need Bitcoin to return to the mission and objectives that formed the foundation of what a pension fund was supposed to do. So I ask a lot of workers, what do you own outside of the traditional financial system? The same system that brought us the financial crisis and wrecked real estate values for individuals and pension funds. The same system that forced many pension funds to need a bailout. But if you look into this, the pensions and retirement funds did not get the same bailout that the financial institutions and the banks got on Wall Street. And it wasn't they got money to bring them into solvency, but the remainder of needing to catch up for the value of their fund was made up with cuts and other means. One of those means is pushing back the retirement age. It's almost like an inflation tax on time. And this chart shows in 2002 the average retirement age in the US was 59 years old, and in 2022 it's 64 years old, 5 years. And you can see the trend after the financial crisis. That time has revved up. It only jumped prior to that from 59 to 60. So this is a big deal because you know you're working later into your life, and for some in my profession in firefighting, we have increased risks of cancer, we have increased risks of strokes and heart attacks, and we know that as we age we become more vulnerable to those things, and our bodies kind of lose strength. So you're now, telling folks if you're in certain fields, hey, guess what? To balance this out, you are going to, you have another 5 years where you'll be rolling the dice and having to deal with some of these extra stressors. It's a big deal. It's a life or death thing, and you get one life, and it could mean the difference of, retiring healthy and retiring sick. And what this graph shows me is that the legacy system is the is perfectly fine with balancing the errors of their ledger with our time, the wage earner. That they're perfectly fine doing that. So, that's something that it's not cool. The same system that brought us record inflation, and again, our cash, is in that system. And for a lot of, folks have traditionally held gold or bonds because they go, hey, it's out of the system. JP Morgan in 2020 paid a $920 million fine for manipulating precious metals and the treasury market. That's a massive fine. That's almost $1 billion. I guarantee you the coverage on this was not as heavy as FTX. Okay. Even though FTX was much more money, they're basically telling you, hey, you thought you had gold outside of the system, we can get to that too. And here's a fine, which is nothing for us. And that's within that system. So y'all know there's a hierarchy of money our system is based on. It's based on debt. Not all debt is created equal, right? Government debt has traditionally been the safest, and then private institutions leverage that government debt, and so on and so on. The things that a lot of workers hold in addition to their retirement or wages, real estate, pension funds, 401k, savings, gold, they are within that system, but we don't really have much of a say in that system. When I was down at Adopting Bitcoin, I issued a challenge, and I'll issue the same challenge to the crowd here. If you can get a sitting US senator right now on FaceTime and a CEO of like a major bank, I'll give you, 250,000 sats right now. And the reason I can issue that is there might be some people who can do that in their room. I definitely can't do that. Those are the folks making the decisions, and they're going to, take care of the people at the top of that system. We own the things in the system, but we're not necessarily a part of that system in making decisions, especially when things go south, like during the financial crisis. So we stand outside of that system with nothing, and luckily, right, something incredible has come to us outside of that system with Bitcoin. I even put a little arrow that lets you know, look, it's outside of that system, in case you needed some clarity on that. And there's so many great facets of Bitcoin, but some of the biggest ones on why I felt for the worker, it's a great thing to have, and we know these very well. Self-custody, right? You hold it. I remember the first time I got into Bitcoin in 2017, and before I even knew what I knew today about money and our financial system, I put Bitcoin into self custody. I remember going to sleep that night and waking up like I just feel different. Something happened where I knew enough. I still didn't know barely, I didn't know enough about Bitcoin, but I knew it was special what was happening, that I was putting this thing into self custody that I had, that it couldn't be taken. Fixed supply in economics, scarce forever. I don't like to say forever or never, but as long as we value scarcity, it's one of the best aspects of Bitcoin, and we will continue to keep it scarce. And again, we talk about trading time for money. You want to trade scarcity for scarcity, which I'm preaching to the choir, but I'm talking to workers a lot about this. And it's decentralized, which is another amazing facet of Bitcoin. So, for these reasons, Santa Monica firefighters became the first union in the country to self custody Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Thank you guys. But if you look at the date on there, man, I'm gonna need contacts again, dude. I got laser eye surgery. It's only, it lasted a good time, but June 3rd, 2023. I often think, why did it take so long? No, I looked far and wide in the US and could not find any union that had done this. Why did it take so long to do this? And we know the answer, right? The last decade, the media blitz on negative coverage for Bitcoin has been nothing short of incredible. I mean, it is unbelievable the negative coverage that Bitcoin has got. Look at some of these headlines. The fact that they exist is crazy. You'd be crazy to actually spend Bitcoin. The great Bitcoin scam. It's probably worth zero. Warren Buffett, who, by the way, plays in that other system in that hierarchy, says it's rat poison squared. Lost passwords lock millionaires out of their Bitcoin fortunes. The collapse of FTX. You'd have to be crazy to bring this to an organization like a union and go, guys, let's get some Bitcoin, because they've been listening to this for 10 years relentlessly, and the folks they've been talking to, their old school tax accountants or money managers, they double down and reinforce that message by saying, yeah, that thing's terrible, stay away. That is a lot to overcome, and I remind people it's an institutional cycle now, right, with the ETF. This is going to take much longer than 3 months of an ETF to unwind this incredible media coverage. And oh, by the way, that media coverage seems to have subsided a little bit now, and then, coincidence that the owners of these publications now have an interest in offering a product in the Bitcoin ETF. So I tried to think of a way, like, how do we overcome this? And lowering the stakes and getting off zero, I said, all right, you know what? I'm gonna build a measure where we literally do $1 per member. So we have 115 members. That is a laugh. It's laughable, right? $115 of Bitcoin. Good. I want them to be laughing about this. That's a good start. What does this do? I've found that when people have long held beliefs, it is much easier to meet them at their beliefs and come up with solutions to neutralize those fears than it is to attack their beliefs as wrong, misguided, crazy. I just have found more success in that. And so I tried to do that here with this group. And when you have a dollar measure, right? Imagine the meeting with all the firefighters there. Hey, didn't Bitcoin crash and went from 69 to 15? Instead of explaining, oh, that's because you don't understand. Yeah, it did. It did go from a 69 high to 15, but it's $1. Are we worried? Let's see how this goes and let's learn. Okay, yeah, we're not worried. Same thing with, what if someone hacks it? It's $1. So we're learning. Is it legal? What if our tax accountant calls and says, can't believe you guys did this. It's against the law. You didn't do the right research. Okay, we'll take that $1. We'll do what needs to be done. Low risks allow us to neutralize these fears so that we can be in a learning environment. And I'll just say, you cannot learn in fear. If I set a fire over there in the corner and pulled the alarm and then started to teach you guys about, physics, you guys aren't going to be sitting there like, oh, interesting, right? You're going to get the hell out and be like, someone get this guy off the stage. I'm out of here. It's a very similar phenomenon with the fears with Bitcoin. And so we built a measure. We explained on this survey, which is open on our website. We have open source stuff. So everything we do for the nonprofit. We make it available to the public because I want them to be able to use these tools. We made a survey that explained why we were getting into Bitcoin, how we were going to do it, and that we were going to create a committee. And this measure passed by 87%. Now, I was on the union for 10 years. We can't even pass like a coffee measure on what coffee we're going to drink at the station by those numbers. I mean, if I tried to change the coffee brand, it would be like 60-40, and there'd be a lot of uprising. This passed overwhelmingly, and a key thing in trying to bring Bitcoin to an organization is this. In any organization, you're going to have 3 tiers of people on any decision. Those that have their mind made up for, those that have their mind made up against, and everyone in between. The reason it's important to start easy and get off zero with low stakes is that the group that you're going for is the middle group, and they're all up for grabs. So imagine if we would have started with, 100,000 or 200,000 in Bitcoin, the fear kicks in, and now those people that are up for grabs, a lot of them get grabbed by the against because they play off of fear. Dude, we can't do this. Are you like, Dom's crazy? We can't get into Bitcoin. It's going to wreck us. Yeah, you're right. You're right. This is too much. Versus $1. Hey, we can't do this. This is so crazy. It's like, why are you talking to me about this? It's $1. I don't even care about this item. I'm just kind of more curious and playful. That's where you want to be. Passed by 87%. That picture in the park, real quick, that was at you're wondering, what are these firefighters doing buying Bitcoin? That's where we put into self-custody. And there was a couple homeless people around, but we navigated. We were safe. We had a lookout. And it was on Ocean in California. And what was special about that place was in 2009, my first year as a firefighter, there was a marathon in Santa Monica. And that was the location of the finish line of the marathon. And what I didn't know at the time, which I wish I knew, was there was someone running in the race who didn't finish because he got fatigued and had to pull out of the race, and he was diagnosed with ALS, and that was Hal Finney. And the reason we picked that location is because it was really important to communicate to the firefighters, and something that's big in our culture is continuing the work of those that came before us. It's one of my favorite things about Bitcoin. We just build off that last block, and our work and the things we do are made possible by those that have done the work before us. And so that was important that we carry that on. Thank you. We've had some folks join since, and the Vacaville firefighters followed suit. So did the Humboldt firefighters. And we also raised some sats for a firefighter association, Apro Bomberos, in El Salvador. So they all hold Bitcoin in self-custody on the balance books. Union adoption, why does it matter for Bitcoin? 14.3 million union members in the US, 207 million throughout the planet. Unions, aside from pensions, hold $28.5 billion in assets collectively. There's $5.99 trillion in public pension assets in the United States. And there's 25 to 48 trillion of global pension assets. The reason that number varies so widely is depending on the study. There's a lot of different systems that are included or not included. And if you look at the union worker, you know, what the most powerful thing we noticed when we adopted Bitcoin, now over 50% of our members individually are Bitcoiners. It's an incredible, I've never seen anything like it in our world that had an effect like that on the individuals. And workers are voters. They're campaign donors in the fact that, you know, they participate in that process. Albeit, you know, the larger unions, I think, have gotten a little too political, and I think we see that and maybe don't agree with some of their politics. And I think Bitcoin can recenter that. But a lot of the issues sometimes we see coming out of DC, attacks on Bitcoin are only possible due to a lacking broader adoption. And something I read about in Pennsylvania, they tried to do a Bitcoin mining moratorium in Pennsylvania. And the sponsor of the bill said, he took it off and said, you know what? The trade unions actually called me up and started putting pressure on me. And I don't know, between Stronghold and uh, some of the other miners up there, if they employ union labor or what's going on, but that was defeated because of that broader support saying, hey, stay away from Bitcoin. And also, lastly, unions also have circular economies. Think about a union. They collect dues from members, they have an operating budget, and then they use that money. They don't profit, they use that money for the members. So they are pre existing. That's a $29 billion market of pre existing circular economies that are outdated and prime to utilize the benefits of layer 2 solutions in Bitcoin. So, because of this, we started Proof of Workforce. It's a 501c4 nonprofit. I'm blessed with an incredible board of directors. Lisa Huff is on our board, Mags Granowska, Joe Carlasari, Chris Alamo, the Blue Collar Bitcoin boys are on there. People always go up to me and they go, hey, love your stuff on Blue Collar Bitcoin. I'm like, no, I'm just a firefighter that I'm just, I hang out with them a lot, but they're awesome and we have a great board. And our goal is to provide cost-free resources to anyone trying to bring Bitcoin to their organization, union, or association. And we will bring Bitcoin to every union in the US and in the world eventually. That's our mission. We will succeed. Nothing will stop us. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Y'all are too kind. This could be out of Lisa's book. Your immediate world depends on you to find Bitcoin. And I believe this is really important given, I think this is incredibly important given the opportunity created by some of the ETFs. It's institutional cycle, but organizations are the lifeblood of institutions and institutions serve those organizations. And I think it's important for all of us, what is my world? It doesn't have to be unions. It could be your church. It could be your workplace, your fitness club, your book club, your union, your family, although the family is the most dangerous to try to orange pill because they'll never let you forget any issue and they'll just hammer you relentlessly. Y'all know those cold Thanksgivings during the bear market, they will not ease up. So, proceed with caution on the family. We have resources on our website and everything we do, we provide the resources. And so, those are available for you at any time if those can be helpful. And I think there's any membership-based organization, there's a similar approach to bringing Bitcoin. Many doors will open for you in your lifetime. Walk through as many as you can. Neil opened with this story about an incredible door that opened for me with a fateful rescue at the beach. I was at a time where I was really exploring Bitcoin and unions and where the intersections were. And I try to look at the signs more. And when you see a sign that's something you're working on in Bitcoin, blast through that door, especially if it's something that it's in your realm of something of interest that you're working on. Go push through that door no matter what. If you find out what's behind there is not relevant, then find that out afterwards. But Bitcoin has opened a lot of doors. I love the work that I do, and I will pursue any opening, any calls we get that say, hey, we want to work on Bitcoin, I'm there. So I think that's a really important lesson. I think this is a key period where we need to bring Bitcoin to organizations, especially workers. I want to see workers win off of Bitcoin. And, what we don't want to see is institutions and wealthier, institutions, profit and do well off Bitcoin while workers are left behind because they need it the most. And so we're going to continue to do that work. And other than that, here are our social website and our Twitter or X accounts. Please support any way you can. If there's ever an organization where we can help out and help orange pill those organizations, we can help out in any way. I'll go fly to where you're at. We'll help you with a presentation if you want to do it on your own, or if you don't even want to call us, go to our website, see if there's any tools there. But we have an abundance of resources. We're here to help you in any effort to bring Bitcoin to your immediate world. And that is my presentation. Thank you guys so much. Thank you. I think we have some time for Q&A, like 2 minutes if there's any real quick questions. Otherwise, I'm around, so I can easily do questions afterwards. Happy to tell the story on that rescue on the beach. I don't know if there's any questions, but we have one over there. Oh, so you're trying to get into our little setup there. So we started, yeah, I'll just say because we started with $1, it was a learning process. So we used a very simple software wallet to start, and we are transitioning to a multi-sig key setup. And that multi-sig setup, most organizations like this fit perfectly with a multi-sig setup because there's already a board of directors that manage dollars. And it's funny, I love how we go, we're going into every possible error on Bitcoin and getting a multi-sig setup that's just as bomb proof as possible. Yet, our treasurer can empty the checking account like that, but this is Bitcoin and we don't play around, and we know that the value today is only a glimpse of, what it's going to be worth in the future. And I just want to say something aside for that long term. When I talked to the firefighters and we had that key moment where we voted on it, I told them, this is for the next generation of firefighters. This step is not to get rich. We're not going to distribute a bunch of money. It's not for us to retire early. This is because as an organization, which for us, we're a 137-year organization, what are we going to leave the next generation of firefighters in 30 years that come and face a whole new set of challenges that we never imagined? Well, now, we started with $1 of Bitcoin. We hold an entire Bitcoin, so our union is a whole coiner organization. And we will leave something of incredible value for the next generation. So thank you guys. We had one more. I would say, hell yes. You tell me the time and the place, I will be there. We'll bring the cavalry with us, and we will make the best attempt at, trying to bring a very well thought out plan to bring to your union and support you with every resource that we have. Thank you guys. This is my time. Gary's listening to rap music now, so if I go past the time, that's a 187 on me. So I'm going to go ahead and give it to Gary. Thank you guys.